Welcome back, everyone. We're diving into a topic that's really at the heart of so much of what we discuss, Black unity, and how it can be this potent force against oppression.
Hmm.
We're going to be using this really insightful online article called The Power of Black Unity in the Fight Against Oppression
Yeah.
as our guide for this deep dive. And I think it's going to give us a lot to think about in terms of the history, the connections, and really how this idea of Black unity, it's not just some past thing. It's so relevant to what's happening today.
One of the things that really struck me right off the bat with this article was how it defines oppression. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
like it doesn't just assume we all are on the same page with what that means.
Right.
It really breaks it down, like the different ways it shows up,
Right.
which I think is super important because
Yeah.
you can't really talk about Black unity as this answer to something unless you understand what are you actually trying to
Yeah.
address.
Exactly. And it doesn't shy away from those hard topics. It dives right into systemic racism, social injustice, economic inequality. And, it gives some pretty stark examples of how these things actually play out in the lives of Black individuals and communities.
Yeah, and I think that's so key because, sometimes we talk about these things as if they're just ideas,
Right.
but the article really brings it home by showing how they have real consequences.
It's not just theoretical, it's people's daily lived experiences.
Exactly.
And so by kind of laying out those different dimensions of oppression, the article really sets the stage for understanding, okay, this is why Black unity has been so important historically and why it's still so crucial today.
Yeah, it's not just about feel-good vibes or
Yeah.
kumbaya. It's a strategic response to some very real and very deep-rooted obstacles.
And, speaking of history, the article takes us on a really fascinating journey through these key moments where Black unity was really this driving force for change.
Oh, it's like watching this narrative unfold.
Hmm.
We start with the civil rights movement, which I think so powerfully demonstrated what collective action can achieve.
Mhm.
And the article doesn't just talk about it abstractly.
Right.
It brings it to life through these stories of iconic figures, like Martin Luther King Jr.,
Yeah.
Rosa Parks.
Absolutely.
And it reminds us not just of their courage, but also of the strategic brilliance of their nonviolent resistance.
And one thing that really struck me was how the article delves into the Black Panther Party. Because, that's a movement that's often kind of misunderstood or misrepresented.
Yeah.
And I think the article does a really good job of going beyond that kind of surface level perception of militancy and actually highlighting their commitment to empowering their communities. Like, for example, the Free Breakfast for Children program. That was all about uplifting their community through concrete actions.
Yeah. And it challenges, the kind of one-dimensional narrative that we often hear about them. It shows a different side, which is all about this dedication to actually making a difference in the lives of people.
It's about action, not just words.
Exactly.
Mm.
And then what's really fascinating is how the article connects these historical movements to this idea of collective identity. How a shared sense of belonging, that comes from a common heritage, culture, shared struggles, how that can be this incredible source of resilience and the ability to face adversity head on.
It's like a shield, almost.
It is. It's like a psychological shield against oppression. And it made me think, for our listeners, understanding this concept of collective identity, it might help us appreciate the strength and resilience of any marginalized community, really.
Yeah. Any group that's facing these seemingly insurmountable obstacles, because it's not just about, individual strength. It's about the strength that comes from community, from knowing that you're not alone in your struggles.
And that shared history can be so powerful. It's like a bond that can't be broken.
And speaking of powerful expressions of shared identity, the article dives into the world of Black cultural expression, music, art, literature, and how it's been this really important tool for unity.
Yeah, it's like a language, right?
Yeah.
That speaks across generations. It's like this collective narrative that transcends time.
And it's so vibrant. The article connects those historical genres like jazz and blues, which were born out of, such difficult circumstances. It connects those to the contemporary impact of hip hop,
Yeah.
which continues to give voice to Black experiences in such a powerful way.
Right. It's not just entertainment. It's like this vessel of
Yeah.
shared history, shared emotion.
And then visually, I loved how the article highlighted artists like Jacob Lawrence and Jean-Michel Basquiat. Their work challenges those dominant narratives and
Yeah.
celebrates Black culture in such a visually arresting way. It's a reminder of just the vibrancy and the resilience that you see in Black artistic expression.
Absolutely. And, literature, too. Think about writers like James Baldwin, Maya Angelou, Toni Morrison.
Oh, yeah.
Their words offer such profound insights into the lived realities of Black individuals. And they compel us, right, to confront these uncomfortable truths about society and to imagine a world where justice and equality actually reign.
And all these forms of creative expression, from music to art to literature, they've played such a vital role in fostering unity within the Black community. But as the article points out, the path to unity, it's not always easy. There are challenges, right?
Oh, absolutely. There are real challenges that can make it difficult to achieve that kind of collective action.
And the article doesn't shy away from those hard truths. It talks about the persistence of systemic racism, how it shows up in education, healthcare, housing, even in interactions with law enforcement. And, these aren't just isolated incidents. They point to this really deep-seated problem that continues to affect Black communities.
Yeah. It's like a thread that runs through so many different aspects of life. And it's a reminder that, even though there's been progress, there's still so much work to be done.
It's woven into the fabric of society in so many ways.
Yeah.
But it's not just those external forces, right,
Yeah.
that make unity challenging. The article also talks about these internal divisions that can sometimes arise within Black communities themselves.
Yeah, this is where it gets really interesting because it acknowledges that, you've got differing political ideologies, socioeconomic disparities, even generational gaps that can create a sense of fragmentation. And I think it's a good reminder that true unity, it takes work.
Yeah.
It takes that ongoing dialogue, a willingness to understand different perspectives and really try to bridge those gaps.
It's like any group, really. You're going to have diversity of thought and opinion.
Exactly.
It's about how do you harness that diversity and use it to work towards a common goal.
Right. And then the article brings in another layer of complexity, which is technology, and how it's kind of this double-edged sword in the fight against oppression.
It can be this incredible tool for raising awareness, for mobilizing support, but it also has a dark side that we have to be aware of.
Absolutely. And the article talks about, the risks of misinformation spreading so quickly. And that whole phenomenon of slacktivism.
Can you explain what slacktivism is for folks who may not be familiar with that term?
Oh, yeah. Slacktivism, it's like, when you click a button online
right.
or you share something.
Yeah.
And it gives you this feeling like, oh, I'm doing something.
I did my part.
I'm making a difference. But does it really translate into real world change? That's the question the article's asking us to think about. And, it also points out this digital divide, right?
Yeah.
Where not everyone has equal access to technology.
That's a huge issue.
And that can create even more barriers to participation.
Yeah. It can exacerbate those existing inequalities.
Right. So it's definitely a complex issue. No easy answers. But amidst all these challenges, the article does offer some hope. It shines a light on these inspiring examples of Black unity in action.
Like those glimmers of light, those moments that remind us, okay, this is what's possible when people come together.
Right, and it revisits the civil rights movement. But this time, focusing on, the power of grassroots organizing.
Yeah.
The effectiveness of their strategies. And then it draws parallels to, contemporary movements like Black Lives Matter, which has had such a global impact.
And, one example that really stuck with me was the Black Panther Party's Free Breakfast for Children program.
Yeah.
Because it wasn't just about, feeding kids. It was about addressing the systemic issue.
Really?
And challenging those negative stereotypes.
Yeah, it was about empowerment.
It shows how these seemingly small initiatives can ripple outwards and create lasting change.
And it's such a beautiful illustration of the power of collective action, how Black unity can translate into concrete improvements in people's lives.
Yeah.
But the article goes even further, right?
Yeah.
It says, okay, to really create this transformative change, you've got to build alliances beyond the Black community.
That's where things get really exciting to me. Because it's about recognizing that we're all in this together, The fight for social justice, it's not just about one group or one cause.
Right. And the article highlights these amazing collaborations between, Black activists and other marginalized groups, like indigenous communities fighting for land rights, LGBTQ plus organizations advocating for equality.
Yeah. It's about shared struggles.
It is. It's like forging this united front against systems of oppression that affect us all in different ways.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just theoretical, right?
Right.
The article gives these concrete examples, like Black and indigenous communities joining forces to protect the environment, to reclaim their ancestral lands.
That's powerful.
It's such a testament to this idea that we're stronger together. you know?
United we stand, divided we fall.
Exactly. And,
Yeah.
the article doesn't just say, okay, be united. It actually gives us a roadmap for how to get there.
It's practical advice. Like, how do we actually build this unity?
Right. And it emphasizes the importance of, inclusive strategies,
Yeah.
welcoming diverse voices.
Making space for those different perspectives.
Right. Creating that space for open and honest dialogue.
Right.
Because true unity isn't about silencing dissent or pretending everyone agrees on everything.
It's about those tough conversations.
Yeah.
It's about being willing to challenge your own assumptions.
Exactly. And sometimes, those dissenting voices, those are the ones that can make the movement stronger.
Absolutely. It's about embracing that richness that comes from diversity of thought.
Yeah.
And, the article highlights the role of, like, organizations and grassroots movements in fostering that kind of unity, like community forums, workshops, cultural events, all these spaces where people can come together and build those relationships.
Of course, you can't forget about the power of social media when it's used responsibly, right? To connect people across geographical boundaries.
To amplify those messages of hope and solidarity.
Right.
It's about building a network of support both online and offline. And it's not just about the present, The article talks about the future, too, and the importance of those mentorship programs that empower the next generation of leaders.
I love that. It's like this idea of intergenerational connections.
Yeah.
Recognizing that young people have such a crucial role to play in the fight for justice.
Absolutely.
And that they can learn so much from those who came before them.
Passing the torch.
It is. It's about making sure that flame keeps burning.
Yeah.
And not just passing on knowledge, right? But instilling a sense of hope and possibility. Because despite the challenges, the article says, look, there's reason to be optimistic.
There is. We have to hold on to that hope.
We do. Because Black unity has achieved so much in the past.
Incredible victories.
And it's still this powerful force for change today.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And as the article reminds us, the fight for justice, it's a marathon, not a sprint. It takes that sustained effort.
Right.
A willingness to learn, adapt,
Keep going,
and an unwavering commitment to building a better world.
Yeah. Because the work is never done, right?
You're never done. So I guess the question is, where do we go from here? The article ends on this hopeful note, but it also challenges us to take action. It reminds us that the fight against oppression is ongoing, and it requires constant vigilance, engagement, a commitment to really building that more just and equitable world for everyone.
And that's where you come in, dear listener.
Mm-hmm.
You've got all this knowledge now, these insights.
Yeah.
What are you going to do with it? What resonated with you? What actions, even small ones, can you take to support Black unity, to be a part of this fight?
It could be something as simple as, educating yourself further, having those tough conversations with your family and friends, supporting organizations that are doing amazing work. Or just being more mindful of your own biases, your own privilege.
Every action, every conversation, every bit of awareness we raise, it can make a difference.
It all adds up.
It does. And the article makes it clear, Black unity isn't just some destination. It's a process.
A journey.
It's a journey that we're all on together.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a journey worth taking.
As we kind of wrap up this deep dive, I'm struck by how much we've talked about, like the history, the complexities of oppression, and really that like inspiring power of Black unity. It's been like a lot to process.
Yeah, it really has. And, I think one of the things that makes this article so powerful is that it's not just like a dry academic analysis.
Right.
It really captures that spirit, that like essence of Black unity, that like enduring flame of hope and resilience.
Yeah. It's like you can feel it in the words,
Yeah, exactly. And I think one of the key takeaways here is that Black unity isn't just some historical phenomenon.
Yeah.
Like it's not just something we read about in textbooks.
Mm-hmm.
It's a living, breathing force that's shaping our world right now.
Absolutely. And, the article does such a good job of connecting those struggles of the past to the challenges and also the opportunities that we see today.
Yeah, and it shows us, like how the lessons learned from movements like the Civil Rights Movement, the Black Panther Party, how those lessons can actually inform our strategies for dealing with things like systemic racism and economic inequality today.
Yeah, it's like a blueprint for action almost.
It is. It's like drawing on the wisdom and the courage of those who came before us,
And realizing that we're not starting from scratch. Like there's this rich legacy of resistance and resilience that we can tap into. And that's what makes me feel hopeful, like there's this wellspring of knowledge and experience that can guide our actions.
Yeah, and I think one thing that really stood out to me was the emphasis on building bridges beyond the Black community.
Oh, yeah, that was powerful.
Right. Like that idea of solidarity, understanding that we're all interconnected
Yeah.
and that injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere.
That's such an important message because it's not about like one group versus another.
Right.
It's about creating a more just world for everyone.
Exactly. And the article gives those concrete examples, like
Hmm.
Black and Indigenous communities working together to protect the environment, LGBTQ plus organizations joining forces with Black activists to fight for equality.
Yeah, those alliances are so powerful.
They are. It's a reminder that our struggles are connected and that we're so much stronger when we stand together.
As we wrap up this deep dive, I think it's fitting to go back to that closing thought in the article, the one that asks, considering the historical context and the current challenges we've talked about, what role can you play in supporting Black unity and the fight against oppression?
Ooh, that's a good one.
It's a question that, really stays with you.
It does. And there's no one right answer. It might
Mm.
be educating yourself more. It might be having those like tough conversations with your family and friends,
Yeah.
supporting organizations that are doing the work on the ground.
Or even just being more aware of like your own biases,
Right.
your own privilege.
Exactly. But every action, no matter how small it seems, it can contribute to creating a more just and equitable world.
It all adds up, right?
It does. And as we've learned from this deep dive, Black unity isn't just a goal, it's a process, a journey that we're all on together.
And it's a journey that's going to take constant learning, reflection and action.
It is. But it's a journey worth taking.
Because ultimately, it's not just about supporting Black unity, it's about supporting humanity. It's about creating a world where everyone has the opportunity to thrive.
Beautifully said.
Well, thank you for joining us for this deep dive. We hope you'll continue to explore this topic, to have those important conversations, and take action to create a more just world for all.